Last season, anchored by the elite rim protection of Chet Holgmgren, the all-NBA caliber lockdown ability of Lu Dort, and a roster full of lengthy and switchable guys, the OKC Thunder has produced the fourth best defensive rating in the entire NBA, while also being the best team in the league in terms of forcing opponents to commit turnovers on a per-game basis. And after succeeding as the top seed in the Western Conference, now the Thunder have doubled down on that elite defensive identity even further by adding two of the best and most physical defenders in the NBA regardless of position. OKC now has 6'5" all-defense guard Alex Caruso, who they acquired from the Josh Giddey trade a few weeks ago, as well as newly signed 7' big man Isaiah Hartenstein, who has been the interior muscle of the New York Knicks' top 10 defense. Well, one of the most widely used metrics to determine defensive impact is the defensive estimated plus-minus metric, and last season, Hardenstein and Caruso finished with the second and the fifth highest defensive EPM rating in the entire NBA. So, when you got those two top-caliber defenders and add them to this already elite defense that OKC has, the obvious question for NBA teams is, how are you gonna score against this OKC Thunder squad as presently constructed? Although it's worth noting that both Caruso and Hardenstein's impact for sure isn't just gonna be limited on the defensive side of the ball, as both of them also have skill sets that could further elevate the Thunder's number 3 ranked offense. So what's good everyone, it's Real Balls here, and in this video, let's talk about how Isaiah Hartenstein and Alex Caruso are about to become total game changers for the Thunder, and how they'll bring this team closer to potentially winning an NBA title as soon as next season. Let's get to it. In the OKC offseason primer video I made about a month ago, I already talked about the fact that if the Thunder were gonna go after a big man in free agency or in the trade market to address their interior needs, Isaiah Hartenstein would be the most workable fit with OKC's existing core, among all potentially available high-profile big men this offseason. And I'm just really glad that he actually landed with the Thunder. Well, sure, it's worth reiterating that OKC was able to succeed defensively even with a relatively small lineup during the regular season, but in the playoffs, particularly in the second round against a big Dallas Mavericks squad, when 7'1" Chet Holgmgren was on the bench, without a vertically capable big man to back him up, OKC just couldn't really prevent the Mavs big man from getting offensive boards or from catching lobs at the rim. But now, Isaiah Hartenstein comes right in as that much needed backup big for OKC, who shouldn't only help address their interior size and rebounding issues, but who could also be someone that can function as a cog in their offensive system. But for sure, the main appeal of Hartenstein right off the bat would definitely be seen on the defensive end. The 26-year-old German big is a hyper-disruptive rim protector who's able to alter a lot of shot attempts in the paint despite not being a prolific shot blocker. Last season, among all 131 players who defended at least 1,000 shots in the restricted area, Hartenstein held opponents to the second lowest field goal percentage, only behind Chet Holgmgren. Well, I believe Hartenstein would still mainly come off the bench for OKC, but I can definitely see stretches where he and Chet plays together on the floor. He's definitely not as elite as Chet on the defensive end, but at the very least, Hartenstein is still more than capable of being a reliable weak side rim protector who's also very adept at defending traditional drop coverages. And while he also doesn't have unicorn-type foot speed when guarding in space, he still has great recovery instincts and just enough mobility that you can actually deploy him on soft switches against quicker players in the perimeter. Coincidentally though, Chet Holgmgren already thrives when defending all those types of coverages, so I can definitely see him and Hartenstein having interchangeable defensive roles when they're together on the floor, with one defending the drop coverage in the pick and roll, while the other one acts as the last line of defense around the basket. Just imagine how hard it would be for opposing teams to score in OKC with these two mobile 7-footers sharing the floor. Plus, with those two bigs, OKC also would no longer be at a disadvantage when playing teams with solid two big man lineups like the Timberwolves with Cat and Rudy Gobert. But in addition to the tough and physical defense that Hartenstein brings, very few big men battle on the boards as hard as he does. He averaged more than 8 rebounds per game in New York last season, with 3.3 of those boards coming off the offensive glass. Hartenstein is just a tough, high-energy big man with a high motor who just constantly hustles to secure possessions. In fact, he registered the 10th highest contested defensive rebounding percentage among all 46 centers who played at least 1,000 minutes on the floor last season. He should be able to provide that vertical pop and boxing out that OKC needs from a legitimate 7-foot big man when Chet Holgmgren is on the bench. Well, moving on to the other end of the floor, sure, Hardenstein isn't the cleanest fit with OKC's 5-out offense, as he doesn't really shoot threes and he doesn't have a jumper outside of 10 feet. But as I've already talked about before, the way I see it, there are still vital things that he could bring to OKC's offense. His wide body will allow him to set solid ball screens for OKC's ball handlers. You can also ask him to roam around the dunker spot where he can be a drop-off outlet for OKC's drivers, and despite on low volume, he is a very effective scorer with his back to the basket, as last season, he ranked in the 94th percentile of the NBA in terms of points per possession produced out of post-up plays, only behind Kristaps Porzingis, Kelly Olynyk, and Kevin Love. Well, that ability to score on the post should already give OKC a different dynamic to their offense, but Hartenstein can also score facing up. He has an unstoppable push floater that he loves to deploy from around 10 to 12 feet, which could be a very ideal weapon against more traditional drop coverages, similar to the one we saw Dallas deploy against OKC in the playoffs. Although my favorite part of his offensive game right now is still his passing ability. For a big man, Hartenstein has advanced playmaking vision, and in New York, he displayed the ability to make solid passing reads, especially out of short rolls, as well as the ability to operate as a dribble handoff option at the top of the key. I'm actually very intrigued on how this part of his game could be utilized in OKC, especially with the team having a ton of capable off-ball cutters on the roster. Overall, OKC's offense is built on quick decision-making, and Hartenstein is a quick ball screener who also makes quick passes and who makes timely cuts to the basket. He would, at the very least, be a solid, high-impact utility big man who can function in Mark Daignault's offense even without the ball in his hands. Well, sure, they landed him for around $29 million annually, which to be honest is a bit more than what I expected the team to offer him. But the fact that Hartenstein outright addresses a number of the team's needs, I think makes him a great free agent acquisition, who I think could even potentially go down as one of the best free agent signings in Thunder history. But even before landing Hartenstein, OKC already acquired one of the best perimeter stoppers in the league last week in Alex Caruso, who I think should be even more of a cleaner fit outright in OKC. Right from day one, as a lockdown defender with super active hands and superb mobility, Caruso will provide the Thunder with high-level disruption from the point of attack, similar to what they already have in Lu Dort. And just like Dort, Caruso is capable of locking down both quicker guards and lengthier wings, as well as a number of bigger forwards. But what I love about Caruso is that despite his very aggressive brand of defense, he only averages 3.3 fouls per 36 minutes for his career, while Dort is actually close to 4 fouls per 36 minutes. Well, this could be expected since Caruso wasn't a consistent starting primary defender for his career unlike Dort, but I think his low foul rate is still very impressive considering how much his previous teams like the Bulls and Lakers relied on him defensively from the point of attack. Nonetheless, in OKC, he and Lu Dort are going to take turns hounding and pressuring opposing teams' star backcourt tandems. The Thunder now have the luxury of deploying two elite point of attack defenders who play bigger than their size against elite perimeter duos such as Tatum and Brown from Boston and Luka and Kyrie from the Dallas Mavericks. For instance, the Thunder will now be empowered to stick Dort on an opposing team's star guard even more because Caruso can now defend that team's star forward, with their roles actually being interchangeable as well. The downstream possibilities of adding Caruso I think are relevant for OKC too, as his arrival should also enable J-Dub to play more off the ball defensively. Well, for sure, J-Dub is a tremendous point of attack defender, but given the load he has to shoulder offensively as OKC's number 2 shot creator, I think scaling down a bit on defense and acting more off the ball should be ideal to help him conserve his energy. Although in instances when you want Caruso to play that off-ball defensive role, he should also be able to thrive. He is a highly instinctive off-ball guy who constantly switches and rotates on defense and who loves to jump off passing lanes to get steals or deflections. In fact, Caruso ranked in the 90th percentile of the NBA in terms of steal rate over his past 6 seasons. He's just tailor-made for this OKC team who forced the most opponent turnovers in the NBA last season. And as if deploying him alongside a combination of Dort, J-Dub, Cason Wallace, and Chet Holmgren isn't scary enough, just imagine the chaos that a Caruso and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander defensive backcourt can generate on the floor. Because despite him carrying a tremendous load on offense, Shai is also a consistent defensive playmaker, especially off the ball. And last season, it's crazy that he actually ranked second in the NBA in steals per game while Caruso ranked fourth. And in terms of deflections per game, Shai also ranked third while Caruso actually ranked first. So with Caruso, OKC should be able to ignite their top 10 transition offense even more. But for sure, it's not just in transition where Caruso could impact OKC offensively. He would also step right in as a capable floor spacer who has been a career 38% shooter from deep, who last season even shot almost 41% from behind the arc. Well, sure, he's never been a high-volume catch-and-shoot guy, but I think it's already good enough that defenses can't leave him open in the perimeter the way they did with Josh Giddey in the playoffs. And obviously, Caruso isn't as good as Giddey as a playmaker, but he certainly has some passing chops as well, and is someone who can make quick decisions with a ball in his hands. But overall, I'm curious how, if at all, his complementary ball handling will be featured in OKC, given most of the team's actions will be flowing around Shai, J-Dub, and Chet. But given correct usage, I think Caruso's ball handling and passing can still be useful on the team, especially in early offense situations or in empty corner sets. But more importantly, on the financial side, I love the fact that Caruso is also owed just $1.5 million more than Josh Giddey this season, and the Thunder also owns his bird rights, which will aid their efforts of potentially retaining him in free agency next summer. Well, the NBA offseason has technically just begun, but with the Alex Caruso trade and the Isaiah Hartenstein signing, at least on paper, it seems like the Thunder have already landed enough pieces to complete their potential championship core. It's now up to Mark Daigneault and the coaching staff to incorporate these two guys to that same system that led OKC to the top seed last season. So thank you guys if you've actually made it this far into the video. Drop your thoughts on the OKC Thunder's offseason moves so far in the comment section below. And also, if you haven't checked it out yet, I also made a breakdown video of Thunder draftees Nikola Topic and Dylan Jones here in the channel. And again, if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing as well. Again, this has been Real Balls, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.